Guru Sri Juta Padakamalang.
Hare Krishna. Welcome to our channel, Bhagavad-gita. Here it is, because we have Bhagavad-gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and my name is Labanga Latika. We have just begun the 8th chapter, Attaining the Supreme. So this is where we all listen up a little bit extra, because philosophy is all very well, but how can we apply it? What will we get from it? So here we can actually learn how to attain the Supreme. Krishna starts by responding to Arjuna's questions, and this is text 3. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Aksharang Brahma Paramang Svabhavo Dhyatma Muchyate Bhuta Bhavodbhavakaro Visarga Karma Sangitaha. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, the indestructible, transcendental living entity is called Brahman, and his eternal nature is called Adhyatma, the Self. Action pertaining to the development of the material bodies of the living entities is called karma, or fruitive activities. Purport. Brahman is indestructible and eternally existing, and its constitution is not changed at any time. But beyond Brahman there is Para-Brahman. Brahman refers to the living entity, and Para-Brahman refers to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The constitutional position of the living entity is different from the position he takes in the material world. In material consciousness his nature is to try to be Lord of matter. But in spiritual consciousness, Krishna consciousness, his position is to serve the Supreme. When the living entity is in material consciousness, he has to take on various bodies in the material world. That is called karma, or varied creation by the force of material consciousness. So here Prabhupada is laying it out very clearly. And sometimes I have read Bhagavad-gita before, but sometimes a part like that just comes out of the page and hits me with its clarity. Because these questions are debated. This is a philosophical question. What is Brahman? And there are all numbers of theories and philosophical speculation. But a devotee does not speculate. He hears from Krishna, he puts it into practice, and he gains realization. Or she. We are not concerned on that level, especially not when we are talking about the fact that we are not this body. So yes, this indestructible and eternally existing spiritual energy is known as Brahman, but its eternal nature is to be connected to the Supreme by devotional service. And that is different from the position in this world, because in this world we see the living entities in so many situations and conditions so different. And that is karma. Karma, of course, the word karma is Sanskrit and it means action, but it also means reaction, because in the action the reaction is implied. I just got myself some ginger tea, and it is very hot. So the action of drinking it, no, it's not even possible, will contain the reaction of burning myself. That is not a question of belief, that is a fact. And every activity in this world has some kind of reaction. We have, of course, the physical laws that says every action has a equal and opposite reaction, something like that. Karma is a little more subtle and a little more sophisticated, but by our activities we are building up our consciousness, and from our consciousness we receive a body in our next birth based on the consciousness at the time of death, and that consciousness is the sum of the life we have lived with all its activities and desires and so on. So that is karma, and it conditions us. We believe that we are this result of this karma. And I believe that I am this body. I'm a middle-aged Swedish woman Of course I'm not. I'm an eternal spirit soul. Right now this is my body, and it's very difficult to separate it, and that we have spoken about a lot. But where does this body come from that I now am so much identified with? That it comes as a result of the karma that I have accumulated over my previous births. Yes, this is very clear. This is actually very clear, and it's I will remember this. In Vedic literature, the living entity is called Jivatma and Brahman, but he is never called Parabrahman. The living entity, Jivatma, takes different positions. Sometimes he merges into the dark material nature and identifies himself with matter. Sometimes he identifies himself with the superior spiritual nature. Therefore, he is called the Supreme Lord's marginal energy. According to his identification with material or spiritual nature, he receives a material or spiritual body. In material nature, he may take a body from any of the 8,400,000 species of life, but in spiritual nature, he has only one body. In material nature, he is manifested sometimes as a man, demigod, animal, beast, bird, etc., according to his karma. To attain material heavenly planets and enjoy their facilities, he sometimes performs sacrifices, yajna, but when his merit is exhausted, he returns to earth again in the form of a man. This process is called karma. So here we have, just one paragraph describing the whole existence in this material universe. We do activities, we take birth, there are so many opportunities open to us, but our real actual nature, that does not change. And somebody once asked that, but what if you go to the spiritual world and we want to be something else? No, because then we don't go to the spiritual world. We go to the spiritual world when we are fully in harmony with our innermost self, when we have fully realized our own nature and our own very specific personal and individual love to Krishna. And when we have found ourselves again, we don't change. As long as we have these separate desires, we stay in this samsara, of this karmic wheel that we go up and down in this world. And we're welcome to do that for as long as we like. Hopefully, we will come to the point where the futility of it all hits us. And then we start to look for something on the inside. And when we find that deep level of realized spiritual love, we're not going to be bored with it and want something different. That is part of this material transient existence. The Chandogya Upanishad describes the Vedic sacrificial process. On the sacrificial altar, 5 kinds of offering are made into 5 kinds of fire. The 5 kinds of fire are conceived of as the heavenly planets, clouds, the earth, man and woman, and the 5 kinds of sacrificial offerings are faith, the enjoyer of the moon, rain, grains, and semen. I hope there will be an explanation, because this was a little difficult to understand for me. In the process of sacrifice, the living entity makes specific sacrifices to attain specific heavenly planets and consequently reaches them. When the merit of sacrifice is exhausted, the living entity descends to earth in the form of rain, then takes on the form of grains, and the grains are eaten by man and transferred into semen, which impregnates a woman, and thus the living entity once again attains the human form to perform sacrifice, and so repeat the same cycle. In this way, the living entity perpetually comes and goes on the material path. The Krishna conscious person, however, avoids such sacrifices. He takes directly to Krishna consciousness and thereby prepares himself to return to Godhead. Okay, that was a very good explanation. Thank you, Prabhupada. So this is the technical description of how the soul goes up and down. When we perform the prescribed yajnas for going to the heavenly planet, we receive that merit that allows us entrance. Just like if we go to work, we receive merit in the form of money and holiday time. Then we can take our money and we can go on a trip somewhere else. And when we have run out of money and holiday time, we have to come back to work again. A little bit like that. So here it's just described exactly how it's done, how the soul then comes back in the form of rain, comes back into grains, and so on. So that's just technical. But of course, we get that as well. The point being is that what we do in this life gives us a certain result. When we run out, we come back to this world. So here we spoke specifically about going to the heavenly planets, but this is true of everything. In this human form of life, we create the karma by our activities. If our activities are in line with the Dharma, which we can find in the religious scriptures, especially the Vedas, there are different forms of Dharma, of course. We are aiming mostly for the Sanatan Dharma, that nature of activity that is of the soul's own nature. That Dharma is Sanatan, it's eternal. The other dharmas are, fitting to different levels of consciousness, so that we are all safer in this world. Because this world is a dangerous place precisely because of the fact that when we don't know the result of our activities, we will still get the results of our activities. So therefore the Vedas, they give us information, and they enable us to subscribe to a certain mode of conduct, which will more or less gain the specific results. So we can be good karmis. Sometimes devotees use the word karmi a little bit carelessly, indicating everybody who's a materialist. Actually, a real karmi is somebody who follows the prescribed duties in the Vedas in order to gain some fruit, some material fruit, some karma. And there are jnanis who study and are austere and who may be able to merge into the impersonal aspect of the Supreme. There are yogis who are focusing in meditation and may be able to attain the super soul aspect of the Lord. But as long as we're not doing specific yogas, our activity will just have some result. We can take birth going lower in the animal species, in the plant species, and so on. We will never be stuck there, because when we run out of that specific karma, we come back to the human form, and we again have our ability, have the opportunity to make better decisions. The Krishna conscious person, however, avoids such sacrifices. He takes directly to Krishna consciousness and thereby prepares himself to return to Godhead. So that is the advice of Bhagavad-gita. Impersonalist commentators on the Bhagavad-gita unreasonably assume that Brahman takes the form of Jiva in the material world, and to substantiate this they refer to chapter 15, verse 7 of the Gita. But in this verse the Lord also speaks of the living entity as an eternal fragment of myself. The fragment of God, the living entity, may fall down into the material world, but the Supreme Lord, Achyuta, never falls down. Therefore, the assumption that the Supreme Brahman assumes the form of Jiva is not acceptable. It is important to remember that in Vedic literature, Brahman, the living entity, is distinguished from Para-Brahman, the Supreme Lord. Yes, this is important. We don't want to make that mistake. We don't want to create some intellectual loop that I don't know what we want to accomplish by that. I really don't understand it. I don't have to understand it, really. But we see in this world there is provision for all our desires. Really, in the spiritual world also there is provision for all our desires. The spiritual world runs purely on desire. But there, the desire is also very pure. The desire is coming from love. So a devotee may love Krishna and desire to serve him in a specific way. Or Krishna may love the devotees and desire a specific form of reciprocation. So that is all there. It's very diverse, it's very dynamic. It's not It's not a boring place where you get a harp and a cloud and think, oh, will I have to sit here for eternity? I don't even know if there is such a description of heaven, but that is just our, how to say, the cliche of heaven. So, but the spiritual world is not a cliche. The spiritual world is a dynamic place where we belong. This is our home, where that real, natural, pure love for God, that is the essence of our very being, is just permeating the whole existence. But the nature of the spiritual world is our desires are fulfilled naturally. And if the desire is to be separate from Krishna, that desire is also fulfilled, but the result of that desire doesn't stay in the spiritual world, because it will be very unharmonious. It wouldn't be good for the spiritual world, and it wouldn't be good for our desires. So we have this material world, and maybe we can try it all out over and over again, or we can get disgusted with material existence and get into this whole logical fallacy that is described here, that believing that the living entities in these worlds are little parts of the Supreme that somehow got cut off from the Supreme and are in illusion now, and then we will stop being in illusion and we will again become one with everything. This really doesn't make sense from any angle that you look at it, because if the Supreme is supreme, why would he be in illusion? And if he would be in illusion out of his choice, how come he can't just shake it off and come back to his original position? So there's the difference between us and Krishna. We are tiny. We are Satchitananda, eternality, knowledge and bliss. But our knowledge is not complete. So we may have that desire to try something else, and we can see the fact is that we are here in this material world. We can also desire to go back to our spiritual existence with Krishna. But if we become sidetracked by this impersonal philosophy, if we allow it to have too much influence on our attitude, our way of thinking, our consciousness, this will actually create an obstacle. And that's why Prabhupada takes it up so often, because so often in other commentaries of Bhagavad-gita, this point is sold over and over again. So Krishna gives us the knowledge we need, and Prabhupada aims to protect us from the fallacies that will create an obstacles in our spiritual life. So yes, that's this verse. So we're ending here for today, and I hope you will come back. We have new videos up every Tuesday and Fridays, almost all the time. I have a box with little links and information. I've made playlists from every chapter, and any question and comment, I'll be very happy to find it in the comment field. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you for watching. We aim for updates every Tuesday and Friday. Please come back. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them down there. We also have some links and information for you. And there is, of course, the subscribe button. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
I'm a Hare Krishna, and I approve this message. Subscribe.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama.